Hello YouTube, this is Mahadeva the Thunder Wizard. I hope you're all doing well this evening, afternoon, morning, whatever the heck it might be for you. Okay, so I want to talk more about what I was talking about earlier. Please let me know also how the sound is. I've boosted the microphone on this computer, and so I don't want to end up speaking too loudly. So let me know if it's too loud at some point. All right, so I am feeling a lot of intensity inside of me, and I'm not able to tell yet whether or not it is just my anxiety, my excitement, my fear. I don't know. I'm feeling a lot inside of me right now, and I can't help but feel more and more that this solar event is a real thing. And never felt like this before in my entire existence. So I'm going to assume that it is something real. And if that's the case, then we all can be very, very happy because we live in literally the most exciting period of the history of planet Earth. Planet Earth may not have ever experienced anything like this before. And if what I think is going to happen, then literally, one day life will be normal, and the next day we will be in a completely different universe. And I don't know what that means yet. So, I would really, here's the thing that is dumbfounding me. What's dumbfounding me is that the least reliable people in the world had this bead on what was coming. I've been trying to find where the whole great event, solar flash, where this came from. Who was the first person that came onto the scene and said there's going to be this single event that will be a solar wave that will come from the galactic center that will affect the sun, which will release some energetic pulse, which will completely lift all of humanity up to the next level and bring greater amounts of love and peace. Who was the first person that came up with this? Because the people that I'm finding online who talk about it are filled with conflation. They're conflating all different kinds of things. People who I think are at the very least mistaken about their ability to psychically channel information. There's a lot of people who have grabbed onto it and using it in a way, to promote themselves because it's a very popular theme. I'd never heard of this before. The first time I ever heard of it was I was communicating with my light being friends here, and I had had that dream that I shared with you not too long ago about something major happening in the sky that people would mistake for the second coming of Jesus, and then they would be dumbfounded when they realized that's not what was happening. And when I went back and asked, what does that mean? Does that mean there's going to be, whole fleets of spaceships? And assuming that I interpreted it correctly, the answer that came back was no. There's going to be a solar pulse that will hit the earth and will bathe the earth in love. And I thought to myself, okay, I'm making things up now. That's just my brain making things up. That's ridiculous nonsense. I mean, that, it would have been different if I was sitting across from, some 3D alien who was telling me that. That would have been one thing, but it wasn't. It was me in meditation, definitely feeling a very powerful connection to a higher dimensional being, and these were the thoughts that were sort of erupting from inside of my brain. And I took note of it because I'd never heard of such a thing, and nor had anything even entered my mind. And it wasn't until I talked about it that somebody said, no, that's a thing. So I've been looking it up, trying to anyway, and the only thing I can find is all this new age hooey with a bunch of conflations and other things. And so, and there's this, I found this online, which I find very interesting. Let's see, where is it? Is it this one? This thing right here. There's another map online, and I don't know where these people are compiling this information. Some of it sounds really good based on my understanding about what's been happening with human ET interactions, my own personal interactions. But I really, I really wish I knew. I really wish I could say, oh yes, in this Vedic scripture it says, but I haven't found anything in what I would consider to be a reliable source of information that has this. So anyway, let me get to, I just had to get that out because it's just, the feeling is growing in me. And I'm a little worried. I'm a little worried because my intuition, my body usually knows when something's coming. And my body will tell me. And sometimes I won't know what the heck's going on. I just know, okay, my body's starting to tell me something's coming, and then something will come. It may be something mundane, a big change in my life, but my body usually knows. So I'm also happy to be completely wrong about this. I have no need to be a prophet or a psychic, a channeler. I have no need for any of that. In fact, I find that stuff, for the most part, I find it, distracting at best. But again, how is it that the New Age people knew this was coming? I don't know. Anyway, let me go back to what I shared about earlier. I won't go through the whole video that I made earlier today, but there's one thing that really stuck with me that my friends are really emphasizing. Whenever I think about it, I get a very strong, powerful, intense feeling in my central channel, in my heart center. And that's usually them. Because, bear in mind, in case you haven't done this, let's talk about the science, my perspective. I can only speak from my perspective. But this is what has me convinced this is a real thing. From my perspective, I am convinced that I am interacting with beings from a higher dimension. And the reason for that is the symptoms of the experience that I'm having. First, there was, of course, the experience where you've seen me, I've talked about it. I had my first real successful CE5 event where some being, very powerful being, took over my radio and did things that were impossible. And I was scared out of my mind. And it was frightening because there was no mistake. Had I not brought my radio with me and I had just had this internal experience, I would have thought, that's an interesting meditative experience. But as you know, as a scientist shaman, I never take personal experiences as proof of anything, because there's this thing called the unconscious. And people project their unconscious, which is what I find happens. I can't say for sure because I don't even know what is true anymore. But I definitely have the feeling that a lot of people who claim to channel extraterrestrials are not channeling anything other than their own unconscious. Nothing wrong with that. Your unconscious might be tapping into things. It doesn't preclude them from getting information from higher dimensional beings, but for the most part, my feeling is, these people are just either pandering to other people's needs, people who need to have that kind of drama and stage show, and a lot of these people throughout history have turned out to be con men and frauds. So I believe I have a pretty good nose for a con man, and the majority of them, they're either deluding themselves or they are pandering for whatever reason. So I never take any of my internal experiences as meaning anything other than, oh, that's an interesting experience. Let me go research this and live my life, and the experience of my life will prove the veracity of whatever I'm feeling. Same is true here. If, let's say by January of next year, if this has not come about, I will probably have already come online and said, well, it looks like I was wrong about this. I ate some bad fish and had a weird dream. But the reason why I feel right now about as convinced as I can be about this interaction I'm having is because of the symptoms I'm experiencing when I do. When I say symptoms, I don't mean an illness. I mean the physical things. So whenever a higher dimensional being, according to physics, again, I'm talking from physics. I'm not talking from the New Age websites that throw out the word 5D. There are people throwing out the word 5D and 6D and 4D, and they don't know what they're talking about. From a scientific perspective, they don't know what they're talking about. They're putting a name to something that they either are thinking about or want to have happen, which is they want, like all of us, they want to live in a world full of peace, full of love, full of connection to spiritual powers and entities. And so they put a name to this new world and they call it living in 5D. And people, there's videos out there, 10 signs you're already living in 5D. And that is meaningless when it comes to physics. Because, dimensions are a real thing. And if I was in 4D or 5D, and there's even question about whether or not 4D is a thing. That it might just go from 3D to 5D. It might be part of 3D is time. So you can't take 3D and 4D away from each other. But if I were to move into a higher dimension, I would disappear. So if during one of my live streams, if I'm in the middle of talking and I disappear, maybe I moved into 5D. But until that happens, I'm still in 3D. It doesn't mean I can't be connected to higher dimensions. I am, and so are all of you, especially when you listen to what I said earlier today, which is that even Einstein was saying that 4D or 3D space-time may actually be a projection of 5D or higher onto the surface of 5D. So we may be walking around on the surface of 5D in the same way that when you walk on the earth, you believe you're walking on a flat surface, but when you pull back, you're actually on a sphere. So we are interacting in 3 dimensions that is being projected onto the surface of 5D like a screen. And or maybe projected from within. More like, when I watched movies as a kid, what happened is you had a projector that projected light through, literally above your head. You could look above your head and you could see the light. You did that all the time. The light was shining above your head and then it hit the screen in front of you. And now, movies are different now. Now movies are projected from behind the screen. Just like your television or your computer. There's nothing behind me projecting onto my computer. So really, 3D space-time is like that. It is a projection from within 5D onto the surface of 5D. The same way that when you watch a movie, it is a three-dimensional looking thing, but it's actually 2 dimensions. Like if I look behind my screen, there's nothing there. It's 2 dimensions. My brain fills it in and turns it into 3 dimensions, but it's only 2 dimensions. So all that stuff about are we in 5D or 6D, or sometimes I go from 6D to 5D, these are just new age people projecting their feelings, usually what they want to have happen, or they're feeling a connection, so they're looking for a way to describe it, but it's inaccurate in terms of actual physics, which this is important to me because my experience has actually taught me and mirrored what tiny little bit I know about this. I'm not a physicist, so don't hold me to any of this stuff. In fact, I have a hard time trying to figure it out. Most of it is completely above my head. But when a higher dimensional being communicates to a lower dimensional being, that being will feel an explosion from inside of them that will make them think that something is wrong. What the heck is happening here? When a higher dimensional being projects communication, words, language, that those words will sort of explode from within their own brain, and it'll be their own mind talking to them. And they won't be able to tell the difference between their own thoughts and the thoughts that erupt from within them most of the time. Unless, that could just be me. Maybe there are people out there that have no problem understanding higher dimensional communications. I think anybody who comes on and says that, oh yeah, again, this is why I have a hard time with channelers, because that's just not how it works. From a physics perspective, that's just not how it works. We have to first assume that these beings exist. If they do exist, then from a physics perspective, this is how it would be. When an emotion is transferred to you, what will happen is you will feel that emotion. It'll start really small in the center of your body, the center of your heart. You'll feel this tiny emotion, and it, like a wave, it will just expand out. And it's just, I've never experienced anything like it in my entire life. And if you want to do it, you can. Just do CE5, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. Practice it. It may take a while for you to get good at it. Anybody can do it. I'm absolutely certain that any human being can do it if they choose. But that dimensional barrier, at least up until this flash when it comes, that dimensional barrier will not be broken by those higher dimensional beings. In fact, it makes me wonder if they're able to break through that dimensional barrier without us creating a portal. That is a whole other possibility. I honestly don't know. But what I do know is that they will not break that dimensional barrier unless we do it. Now, one of the things that I've found to be important, and realizing it, they taught me this when I was 7 years old, and I completely forgot about it because I didn't know what was happening. But I find in order for me to create that communication, I have to, in a meditative state, imagine that I'm leaving Earth's orbit. And I think that might have to do with Earth's magnetic field. This has come up again and again. One of the things that is happening is that Earth's magnetic field is weakening considerably and is shifting, and the poles are shifting. And when I first talked about this just offhand, the lights went on and off. Somebody was trying to tell me, yeah, that's an important detail. I've come to find out that I believe that is why many people are feeling this increase in psychic ability, shamanic ability. You know, my meditations have been going through the roof. I just start to go into meditation and I am in a whole other plane of, I mean, the level of power is unprecedented. And I've been doing this for, 30 years. So I'm well versed in a high degree of power. I've never felt anything like this in my entire practice. So they seem to be telling us that the weakened magnetic field around the Earth is actually making it easier for us to connect more deeply to these higher dimensions. And as I said before, I believe that the map that my Norse ancestors made of the cosmos, where there are 9 worlds, and 2 of those worlds were fortresses, one of them being Middle Yard, Middle Earth, the Middle Fortress, that the walls of that fortress have come down. So Middle Earth is no longer a middle fortress. It's no longer Middle Yard. It's actually now what we call it in English, Middle Earth. That's actually correct. It is the middle world, and it happens to be planet Earth. Planet Earth is the middle world, and there's no more fortress around it. And so this is why I believe it's so much easier for us now to connect with higher dimensional beings. But we still, I believe, either because that's their morality, and I have reason to believe that they've shown me that it is, their morality is they are not going to break the 3rd dimensional barrier without an invitation. So what I find I need to do is I need to meditate and I need to imagine, and you don't have to do it perfectly. In fact, you don't even have to do it good at all. I don't. I have a horrible, I can barely see anything with my eyes closed. I can't imagine pictures, visions with my eyes closed. Some people are very visual. I'm not. But what little I do, I imagine myself, leaving my home. If I can get an idea in my head of what my home looks like, I sort of get a jolt inside of me, which tells me I've sort of locked in. And then I imagine myself pulling up out of my house, and my goal is to get outside of Earth's atmosphere. When I do that, if I don't have a specific planet or place or entity I want to connect with, I don't like the word entity, it sounds kind of evil. If I don't have a specific person I want to connect with, then what I'll do is when I feel like I've gotten out of Earth's atmosphere and I try to imagine where the sun might be, and of course I get it wrong. But it's just the fact that I'm doing it, and I'm doing it with conviction and commitment. That's all that matters. And then I will ask, is anybody out here? Is anybody out here? Would anybody like to meditate with me? Or I have a question. Or my name's Mike. I'm from Earth. I need some help. Whatever it is I want to say. Sometimes I'll get a jolt inside of me, which tells me that somebody saw me and I've got a thumbs up. And then I go, okay, I'm going back down. And I go back down and I imagine myself going back into my body. Of course, I do that horribly as well. But even if I don't get a jolt, if I go out there and I make sure that I've made it outside of Earth's orbit, and I say whatever it is I'm saying, I need help, or I want to talk to somebody, or is anybody out there, or somebody want to meditate with me, or whatever. Even if I don't get a jolt, I'll do that a couple of times, and then I'll just come back into my body and I'll stay meditating. I have to be careful I don't fall asleep, because I'm usually lying down when I do it, with my eyes covered so that I can concentrate. And at some point, somebody will show up. And some being will show up, and the way that I know that is I will feel something show up, and there's still the part of me that goes, is somebody here? I mean, it happens every time. Is somebody here? And then I'll say, welcome. And then whatever the interaction is will begin. Sometimes it will be, thoughts will start to come into my mind. I might see a vague outline of something, or I'll get a feeling, or I'll get a feeling of a kind of a personality there. And I open my eyes and there's nothing there. So that means it's not part of my dimension. And then if there's an emotional interaction, the emotion will start in the middle of my chest and will explode outward. And sometimes it's incredibly intense. Sometimes it's very subtle. And, I think they might get a little annoyed with me because I'm an energy junkie. So I'll be asking for more. No, more. And they'll go, no, that's enough. That's okay. You got what you need. But there's been a few times where the energy has been so intense it's been uncomfortable. And in one case, I guess I can share this with you. In one case, I was meditating and I went to Mercury, the planet Mercury, and I called and I was waiting around for a response and I fell asleep. And as I fell asleep, I had this horrible dream. It was a dream of being rejected by a woman, and it just, all of the old mommy issues were just brought to the surface, and I woke up feeling suicidal. I mean, there was just this blackness overtaking me, and I just wanted to die. And I got up and I went to the bathroom and I lied back down and I was telling myself how horrible life is. And sure enough, somebody was in the room waiting for me to wake up, and they said, "Do you want my help?" And I said, "No, leave me alone. Life is horrible. I don't need anything. Just go away." And they said, "Are you sure? I can help. Would you like me to help?" So I was miserable. So I said, "Okay." And it was as if, somebody just put a straw into my chest and blew. And that literally, that feeling of suicidal, horrific, dark, and it just disappeared. It just blew away like it was, smoke, and a breeze came in and got rid of it and replaced it with this incredibly light, airy, neutral. It was neutral, but it was very light, airy, and positive. And the end result was like, oh my God, that feeling is completely gone. I'd never experienced that, nor would I've ever even thought something like that was possible. And then that feeling continued to expand. And there was like 2 or 3 more waves of it, of just expanding. And by the end, it was just like, it was so much energy. It was uncomfortable. But I turned around and went to sleep and slept like a baby. And I woke up, a few hours later, still buzzing with all of that intense energy. And that's the kind of thing that can only happen when we're talking about interaction between dimensions. This is a dimensional interaction. That's why I'm convinced what's happening is real. Because if it was many other experiences that I've had in my life where I had a feeling or I had a vision or I had a dream, and those half the time turn out to be wrong, at least half of the time. And this isn't something that's coming from my unconscious. This is like, plugging, sticking your fingers in a light socket. I didn't make that up. So I'm sharing this with you so you know what to expect, because I think this is going to become more of a normal thing. I believe that going forward, especially after when the solar pulse hits, I think this will be a normal experience for humans. I think from now on, little kids are going to grow up, and parents and little kids are going to be talking about their connection with the light beings. And yeah, the light beings came to me last night, and there will be healings. And I mean, there have been experiences that I've had where, what I've found is that they're willing to take you as deep into this relationship with them as you're willing or able to go. They'll never push you past your tolerance level, but they're willing to go in it as deep as you're willing to go, especially if you're willing to go through a transformation as a result. And I have now a relationship with my dead mother. She's dead, but I have a relationship with her soul that has transformed into a whole other thing. And I'm communicating with her on a completely different level than I ever have before, and it's healing things within me, healing things within her. And so what's going to happen is we're going to live on this multi-dimensional plane where while we're walking around in our 3D bodies, we're going to be able to interact with people who have passed. There's never going to be anybody doubting ever again whether or not there's such a thing as life after death. Because this literally is just a meat bag that I'm going to unzip when I'm done. And that's it, and then I'll move into more freely into another dimension. There's going to be more and more experiences of high-level masters who in meditation will just disappear. They won't have to even die. They'll bring their physical human body into the next level. And I haven't achieved that yet, but the other stuff I'm telling you about because I've achieved it. And if I've achieved it, you can achieve it. Because the only thing that makes me somebody able to speak this truth, here I am a teacher, isn't because I came here, some enlightened master Buddha, that floated out of I am as screwed up as any human being is. Trust me. If you knew the shit that I lived through as a kid and as a young adult, and even, you guys don't know a lot of the stuff that happens between me and my therapist and my group that I work with. I'm very poorly behaved. I respond and react childishly. There's nothing even remotely close to me being some kind of perfected immortal. Not even close. I'm the most, I wouldn't wish my screwed up humanity on anybody. I'm not trying to compete with anybody. I'm not the only screwed up human in existence. I'm sure there's quite a few listening to me. But the point I'm trying to make is that I am living the most intense science fiction, fantasy, spiritual movie. I mean, I try and watch movies to get entertained, and nothing even comes close to what I'm experiencing. And we haven't even gotten to this shift yet. So let's talk about that. So this event, what I believe will be the result of it is that human beings will begin to realize that their human existence is a three-dimensional probability. In other words, your three-dimensional life is a probability that is projected onto the surface screen of 5D, from inside 5D. So understand, again, this is from a physics perspective. From within 5D, if you were to live 100% within the fifth dimension, it would mean that you had control of time. So you could go backwards and forwards in time. You could go back, 20 years and change, make a different decision, and create a whole new timeline. You can live in as many timelines as you want. Timelines are probabilities. So you'll have access to infinite numbers of probable realities that you can live. And the only thing that stands between you and creating them is the thought of doing so. Now, let's pause that for a second. Let's go back to old 3D. 3D where no matter how hard you try, no matter how many times you go to, Zohar the Magnificent and learn how to try to intend your reality with your emotions, your life doesn't change. Why is it in old 3D it's nearly impossible to intend your perfect reality? Why is it that so many people go to law of attraction seminars and books and teachers and self-described channelers of whatever, why is it that no matter how many of those cruises and weekend retreats you go to, after the first few days you're right back where you were and your life is miserable, and no matter how much time you spend sitting on the edge of your bed trying to emote a better reality in order to attract it, nothing works? Because in 3D we have this thing called the unconscious mind. And what you see that's incorrect, and so I've been saying this for years, but I'm doing it now in the context, now we can talk about it from an actual scientific perspective. There's a scientific reason why it's been challenging. Because this is something that has to do with 3D. In 3D, you don't realize you're a probability. You think you are a solid being. You don't realize that time is flowing through you like a river. You think you're sitting on a boat that's floating on time. You think that you're stuck in one place, floating on top of the river of time. And that's not what's happening. Time is flowing through your static three-dimensional body that keeps replacing itself every nanosecond. And what replaces you every nanosecond is your experience that you are a specific ego. My name is Michael William Denny. I was born 1963. My mother this, my father that. And that creates an anchor point that you continue to manifest a probability based on that narrative. If you own that narrative, they did this to me, they did that to me, that you own that narrative, that is going to create limited probabilities for you. And even if you try and change, you will only have a couple of choices. And you can keep making choices in a better direction, which eventually will create a better life, but you can't instantly change your life. It doesn't work like that. In 3D, it doesn't work like that because you have this idea of who you are, which is rooted in your unconscious mind. You are completely unaware that it is rewriting itself. It is a self-writing program. You know, it's just like, all kinds of computer softwares. It's a software program that's running all the time, and it has rules, and no matter what you do or what you say, you can scream at your computer all day long, it's going to follow the computer program that's been loaded into it. So when you go onto YouTube and you hear people saying they don't know the difference between subconscious and unconscious. So let me tell you the difference. Your conscious mind is the part of you that thinks you're hearing and reacting to me. You're consciously aware of it. That's your conscious mind. That's the top of the iceberg. The middle part of the iceberg is the subconscious mind. Part of it is above the water. A big chunk of it is below the water. But that is where you store all of your, my phone number, my address, my social security number, my wife's birthday, those kinds of things. You store all that information in files in your subconscious, which you pull out when you need it and put back. You don't think about it, you're not conscious of it, but you have access to it. Now, my understanding is that the subconscious mind is also a lens. And you can use that lens to focus an intention. And so this is where people get wrapped up in positive affirmations. They think positive affirmations are going to change their life. Well, go ahead. For some people, positive affirmations might change their life. And the reason for that is because their unconscious mind is cooperating with their subconscious intention. But if you have a program written in your unconscious mind that says you're poor, you're miserable, you're a victim, archons are out to destroy you, you live in a matrix, if that is written into your unconscious program, then it doesn't matter how many times you say to yourself, I'm free and I'm happy, because the moment you say it, that program, which is running 24/7 in your unconscious, will literally delete that like it never existed. And it will replace that with, no, I'm screwed up, I'm a loser, I'm poor. It's going to do that. So every single nanosecond, you keep replacing your probability based on that program. In the fifth dimension, if I understand it correctly, and I'm happy to be wrong about it, but if I understand it correctly, the unconscious mind doesn't exist. The conscious and the unconscious are one thing, which is what we call consciousness. So they've achieved, or they are able to experience, what we strive after, which is we want to become conscious. That's why there's so much talk about consciousness. And, spirituality and psychology are going after the same thing, which is you meditate in the Himalayas by yourself so that eventually you can get to the place where you are completely conscious of all of your issues, and then, that's the whole point. And then you've achieved enlightenment. Swami means self. It comes from the root for self. It means self-aware, self-made. You now don't have any block between choosing your narrative. But for the rest of us, especially if you're still in 3D, you still have this unconscious mind that has a program that's constantly running, whether you like it or not. And the whole point is to become conscious of what is unconscious so that you can decide what happens in your life next. You can create which probability you are going to manifest into that nanosecond. And the less ego attachment you have, and when I use the word ego, I don't mean it in the actual sense of it. I mean it in the new agey sense of it, which is actually when people use the word ego, what they're really talking about is they're talking about a psychological self-defense mechanism, a protection mechanism. In other words, it comes from fear. So fear is an animal instinct. Animals need to be afraid. I live in Florida, and I go outside, and there are, infinite numbers of tiny little lizards that just go scattering in all directions. They're just constantly moving. They can't stay in one place. Because if they did, some crow or, there's all kinds of birds of prey, something would swoop down and eat it. They're just a tasty little snack for some kind of eagle or a falcon or a crow or a buzzard. There's just no shortage of animals that, and of course we have all kinds of other animals here that would love to eat all those lizards. So they're constantly moving all the time because they need to be afraid 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or they'll be dead very quickly. They're going to make a nice meal for somebody. That is an animal instinct. We are animals. Until we get this shift, we're still primates. We're only 0.5% different from chimpanzees. There's just almost no difference. A little bit of more, frontal lobe. Other than that, there's just, physically speaking, there's just no difference. Which is why there are things like UFC. People pay money to go watch two people beat the crap out of each other. People train to learn to beat the crap out of other people. It's just a crazy way to live. We're still animals. So until that happens, that fear will be there. And when it comes to fear, some psychologist or psychiatrist figured out, I don't know how true it is, but it sounds true, says there's only 3 natural fears. One is the fear of falling. When you're an infant, you're born with only 3 fears, at least in your physical body. The fear of falling, the fear of loud noises, and the fear of fast-moving objects. Because those are the 3 things that would kill an infant, right off the bat. Other than that, every other fear is learned. So those of you who believe that there are false beings of light that want to suck the life out of you and control you, that is a learned animal fear that is taking up huge amounts of RAM in your unconscious mind, which means you don't have the ability to grasp onto the probability and change it. The probability is set. It's now not a probability, it's a certainty. Simply because your assumption is false beings of light want to destroy me and suck my brains out. Just by believing that, you've already cemented in a certainty. It's not even a probability anymore. And you repeat it every nanosecond. And so each net probability gets worse and worse and worse. And as I said before, 30 years later, you're drinking yourself, you're smoking weed, you're smoking cigarettes, you're full of rage, you're anger, and blah. It's because you kept creating these certainties that were just probabilities. So if we're able to die to ourselves as Woden did on the cross, as Woden did on the tree of life, if you're willing to sacrifice yourself to yourself, which means the quantum consciousness, if you're willing to sacrifice your limited identity, fear-based animal ego, if you're willing to sacrifice that to the quantum consciousness, which means you have to see everybody as yourself. More than just talk about it, like New Age people do all the time. They talk about it all the time, and don't get me started on that. But when you actually have that experience, I haven't achieved it yet. When I do, you'll know. I'll disappear. I will phase out of 3D visible sight, and you'll know I've achieved it. I haven't achieved it yet. So you are a probability. And you are a probability that is being projected onto the surface of 5D. 3D space-time is like a ball that's rolling around on the surface of 5D. Does that make sense? So that means that if you really are in 5D mindset, whatever that means, you're still 3D, but you are living in a 5D mindset, it means that you have the ability to change your probable manifestation, because that's all you are, is a probability. And if you want to understand what I'm saying, please do the research. People should be researching all these things I'm telling you about. Don't take my word for anything, because I don't know half of the stuff I'm talking about. But go look at the light slit experiment that's been repeated 2 or 3 times, many times, which has shown people that reality, 3D space-time, is not real. And that light responds only to the intention of the observer. So the thing, you send light through a passageway, and there's 2 slits, and the light, if it is a particle, there's a 50-50 chance it'll go either through one slit or another slit. And so when somebody is watching and decides that light is going to go through the right slit, sure enough, it goes through the right slit. If somebody says the left slit, it goes through the left slit. It is responding directly to the observer's intention, their expectation of what this quantum photon is going to do. The end result is that, because they were trying to figure out, is light a particle or a wave? And as it turns out, light acts like both and neither at the same time. It is a probability that will manifest. It will agree to manifest based on how you look at it. And if I'm remembering things correctly, everything, including my coffee cup, is light. Every bit of matter in 3D is some vibration of light, which means that your entire three-dimensional world is your projection. It is a probability that's changing continuously based on your ability to project a probability. So if we are truly living in this 5D reality, all that means is that we have receded back further, or more of our RAM. If this is the computer, more of my RAM has gone back into the 5D projection and is playing around with the possibilities and the probabilities. In order for that to happen, my unconscious has to be clear. It has to be free of unwanted programming. It has to be, I have to be the one to choose to program my unconscious. And or if you're lucky enough, you have good parents who are able to love you so much that they will format your hard drive in such a way where you'll just grow up knowing how to do that. But that is what is coming. What is coming is that little kids, the moment they come out of the womb, I can feel it as I'm saying it, the moment that even before they come out of the womb, their mothers will be teaching them how to meditate. When they come out of the womb, the first 7 years, because kids' minds for the first 7 years, they're at, I think it's a delta wavelength, which means that they are in a constant state of being hypnotized. So if you are meditating and you're teaching your child to meditate, those first 7 years, that child will create an unconscious template. And if they have been programmed to believe that they are the most valuable being in the universe simply because they exist, and that their existence is pure love and pure light, and that they have the ability to manifest in every nanosecond what they want to accomplish, those children will grow up and be something we've never experienced, but we've never seen anything like it. All of their dormant DNA will be switched on. The majority of their essence will be in 5D all the time. They will be able to interact with these higher dimensional beings. They can be sitting there talking to you while also, discussing quantum physics with a higher level being. The frustration for me right now is that my right ear is constantly buzzing. And I know what's happening. It's that ever since I got cracked open, half of me is in 5D, but I don't know what to do with it. I can feel the beings communicating with me when I start to go on a subject they like. It's like the static gets louder and louder. It's like they're screaming in my ear, but I can't hear them. I don't have the equipment to understand what's being said to me yet. I haven't learned how to dial that thing so I can hear and understand. But our kids won't have that problem. We're going to be a whole new species. It's going to be, I'm frightened. I'm a brittle old man. I don't know how this newfangled thing, how the heck does I don't know how it's going to work. I don't know any of it. But it's coming, I believe, and there's no two ways about it. Come January, if it hasn't happened, I will apologize and we'll go back to whatever we were talking about, and we'll forget that this thing ever happened. It'll be like, Y2K. It was one of the things somebody said was going to happen, but never did. But I've never experienced anything like this in my life. And I feel like it's really important to get out as much of this information as possible now. I could be wrong. Maybe after the shift comes, maybe that's when people will want to know the information. And then people like myself, and if you're a teacher, people like you will be needed. By the way, artists, healers, teachers, philosophers, musicians, dancers, actors are going to be more important than ever. Because these are the people that operate from from 5D. They always have been, and they've always felt out of place. Now this is going to be, instead of somebody saying, I want to be, I want to be a UFC champion, or I want to be president of the United States, people are going to say, I want to be an artist. I want to be a musician. I want to be a healer. I want to be, things that normally were, oh, there's no money in that. I remember when I was in college, and my first major was, Bible something, I don't know, whatever. And I quickly got rid of that because I realized that was dead end. These people didn't know what they were talking about. So I then changed my major to humanities classics, which meant that I studied philosophy, I studied history, I studied art, I studied language, classical languages. And somebody asked me, so what's your major? And I said, humanities classics. And he says, what the hell are you going to do with that? Meaning, there's no money in that. Well, those kinds of things are going to be what's going to be most important. We're still going to have scientists, and we're going to have, all that other stuff. But in terms of, business majors, what is your point? I'm a business major. What does that mean? Well, I learn about business. What does that mean? Well, I learn how to make money. Well, I mean, doing what? Well, whatever. I'm just going to run a company, and we're going to make widgets, or we're going to find ways to milk as much money out of people as possible. Amazon. And, my worth will be based on how much money I make. I'll be dead inside. I'll be drinking myself to death every night, and I'll be, devaluing my wife and my children and cheating on them, but I will be rich as hell, and I'll drive, I'm looking at some of the cars here. People have cars that look exactly like mine, except they're a Maserati or, some other thing. And I'm like, what's the difference between my car and your car again? Oh, that's right. The little thing on the front. That's all going out the window. All of that stuff is gone. Nobody's going to care about that stuff anymore. I don't know if 100% of the population is going to magically become that way, or if it's going to be a small population that will then grow. I don't know exactly how it's going to happen, but it will, because there's no way to interact with these higher levels of being without dropping all of the nonsense. There's just no way. It's not possible. Anyway. So hopefully I explained what I wanted to explain. I'm happy to take any questions if there are any. This is a question and answer, the way I like to do things. If you don't want to see the negative side of me, is you will write a question, and you write the word question in all caps so that I see it. I don't want to miss your question. And then you write your question. And if you don't have an honest question, which means you want me to tell you something you think I know that you don't, then you can share a feeling. And a feeling is just that. It's an emotion. It's not an opinion. It's not an event. It is an emotion. These are the two things that I found to be most helpful if you want to have a positive interaction with the Dr. Manhattans of the universe. All right. So having said that, let's see what we got here. Thundra says hello. She is one of my astrology certificate holders. You can go to her website, thundra.thunderwizard.com. She has a bunch of other stuff you can see on her website. She's a very gifted shaman and healer in her own right, and teacher. Paradise Unlimited, honest feeling, joyful, thankful to have you here with us during a quite confusing time. I'm also honored to be here, and I'm grateful that you are here as well. Thank you for showing up and giving me a reason to speak. Creative Virgo lets me know the audio is good. Thank you. Let's see. Question. Ashes to Ashes. Question. Is the New Age info coming from the Ashiana Dion work? I don't know who that is, so I have no idea. I think somebody mentioned the Law of One, and I dismissed it because I say don't bring up stuff I've never heard of before. I looked up the Law of One and where that came from, and without getting into any details, I don't buy into that. I think that's, at best, I think that's somebody's misguided projection of their unconscious. I don't think there's anything about that I would see as valuable. But at the same time, a lot of these people whom I don't think have any credibility are the same people who are talking about this solar flash that I never heard of until one of my higher dimensional friends said, "Oh yeah, there's going to be a solar wave that will go through the Earth." What? There's a bunch of other things that they've said that I can only find in New Age stuff. You know, entities that have come to me and introduced themselves to me, and I go, that sounds really made up, and I'll go looking for it, and sure enough, the New Age people use the same words. How are these people get inside info? What's going on here? Is it simply because that they'll believe anything, and so that some truth comes through? I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I've now completely gone off the deep end myself, so I can't say anybody's right or wrong anymore. So I don't know who that is. Shiana Dean, I have no idea who that is. Vincent.thunderwizard.com says hello. He is also one of my astrology certificate holders, and you can go to his website, vincent.thunderwizard.com, to see all the stuff that he offers. Caleb Spears' question: will the solar wave affect Mother Earth herself? Yeah, I mean, that seems fairly obvious to me. It's a great question, though, but I believe yes. In fact, it may even be her request. I'm not talking here because I know. So, what I found interesting when I started this Thunder Wizard path, I was for a long while, I was really into thunder and lightning and all of the symbolism, spiritual and otherwise, and the physics behind it and all of that. And I really enjoyed something I found out, which I remember when I was a kid experiencing. And I remember when I was a little kid, we used to camp out back when Lake Havasu wasn't a giant, what it is now. When Lake Havasu had just been created and it was all this empty desert. And we would camp on the shore there. And this is like 1968, a long time ago. So we're camping out in the middle of the desert, and these huge thunderstorms would come through and lightning would crash and all of that. And if a lightning bolt struck really close by, what you would first hear is a click and then a bang. And I came to find out that the click was actually the Earth sending a request to the cloud to send the lightning bolt. So there's actually an electrical current that you can't see, I guess, or feel that snakes up from the Earth and hits the cloud, and then the cloud is stimulated and boom, sends down the bang. So there's a click and then a bang, and it would be really loud. And I found out later that was Mother Earth requesting. So it was the yin requesting the yang. It was Parvati requesting Shiva's, fill in the blank. And so that question you've asked makes me wonder, is this going to be will Mother Earth send out a pulse, which then creates the response? That would be a wonderful thing, don't you think? So I think she is completely in control of all of this, and or is cooperating with everybody. And I think what's really coming to my understanding is that we're just not fleas on her back as she goes through her life. She's doing all of this for us. She loves her children, her creations. I mean, we're made of her. She loves us. And so she's doing this for us. So is she going to be affected by it? Of course. I can't imagine why it wouldn't. Then again, that's just my opinion. Zaralath, honest feeling. I had a dream too, where a short-lived but perfect woman I dated came to me and talked and took me home. I woke up depressed because she may never like me that way again. Yeah, I've been there. Caleb Spears, honest feeling, since making CE5 contact, that's Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, it's a protocol, go Google it. I recommend everybody do that. For a while I was recommending people don't do that because, I went through such a hellacious cracking open of my reality, having my whole reality shattered and all of my unconscious issues and karmic issues come to the surface. And you guys were there. I wasn't functional. I gave myself a frozen shoulder, which thankfully I, and with the help of my friends, was able to heal myself of almost immediately. But it really damaged me physically. But I'd recommend that everybody do it, because if you are able to connect with these higher dimensional beings, again, I'm nothing special. I'm not a prophet. I'm just a human being. The fact that I had such a horrific initiation experience with them is testament to how imperfect and how human I am, and how important it is just to have the, operate from fearlessness and just do it. That's more important than your abilities or any of that. They don't care. They're just looking for, people who are willing. And they're extremely, extremely keen to communicate. They're very interested. They are literally waiting. And here's the good news, in case you feel guilty. I'm just talking from what I know. They can correct me if I'm wrong. But they live in 5D or above, which means that they can literally communicate with 100% of all of their attention with infinite numbers of people at the same time, because they don't live. And that's why CE5 tends to be an interaction or a meditative experience, because that's really what they want to do. Then they can interact with as many humans as possible. I can't do that. I can only interact with one person at a time. So I recommend people do that, because it'll help you move. You'll be better prepared when this thing comes, whenever this thing hits. Let's see, honest feeling, making CE5 contact, I felt sort of disconnected from the daily life things and the people involved with those, like shopping, getting an oil change. Me too. That has shifted now. I now am able to be completely, like I said, there's a part of me that's in that 5D world 24/7. There's an interaction and a communication going on 24/7. I think that they're tweaking my energy 24/7, and I've learned to. The big thing is just to not let it freak me out. I just don't let it freak me out anymore. I let myself enjoy it, because the truth is it's an enjoyable experience. It's only if I stop and go, oh my God, what's going on? I think I'm losing my mind. If I don't do that and I just allow myself the experience, it's actually a pleasant experience. So I think you can have that same experience as well. And you haven't asked for my opinion or my advice, but I'll give it. Relax into it, and find yourself being able to do it more. Find a new way to connect to 3D life. That was my biggest fear. I won't lie to you, it's still part of my fear. My fear is that the wave will hit and I'll be pulled out of my body and I won't be able to surf anymore. And I don't want that. I want to keep surfing. I want to get my surfing itch scratched in this life. And I'm getting old, so I only have a short amount of time, but I want to get as much surfing packed into the rest of my life as I can. And so that's a fear. I don't want to lose that. But I think that we'll move into a state where we'll be able to be on multiple dimensions. Again, sort of like a Dr. Manhattan, where he can be doing multiple things at the same time. The more 5D we relax into, the more our 3D projection will be able to do its thing while we have a deeper unconscious connection. And I think the truth is all of us are having that experience, whether we're aware of it or not. If I look back on my life, that's been my reality, even though I talked myself out of it because I didn't want to be different, you know. But I think it's a human thing. All right, moving on. Paradise Unlimited, honest feeling grateful. Thank you for sharing your Mercury experience. It is such a confirmation for me in my CE5 experience. Honest feelings. Patient. Oh, good. Then you have something that I want. I'd love to be patient. I'm working on it. And I'm doing a pretty good job. I'm learning how to love myself more as well. Let's see what else. What was that? Okay, that's something I don't want. Well, actually, I'm going to leave that alone. What else? Nelly, honest feeling, solar flash information came from Project Looking Glass. Ah, well, that makes me feel a lot better. Okay, that's not an honest feeling, but that is very valuable information. And your feeling that you find it fascinating is a real feeling. Thank you. I feel better. I feel so much better now because the Project Looking Glass information at least purports to have come from actual science, you know, whistleblowers from deep state laboratory work. Ah, right, because that's been the biggest thing. It's the Looking Glass project that has confirmed the 2012 date and all the things that we've experienced. So thank you. You just, now I'm going to go looking for that. Thank you so much. That's probably what that map is, huh? I mean, this isn't the one I'm talking about. There's a big one. There's like a website, probably many websites, but this one, maybe that's what this map is all about here. Interesting. Okay, so if it came from the Project Looking Glass, I feel much better. All right, Paul Kupari question. What is the catalyst or process to switching to another timeline you want to change to? So first, forgive me for being so nitpicky, but let me correct your language here, because I think it's important. So I've used this before, so it's not that I haven't used this, I'm changing my vocabulary about this. It's not that in 3D we switch to another timeline, because that assumes that each timeline probability has an ongoing, that it's ongoing all the time. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. What I do know is that in 5D, you can create as many timelines as you want. The ones that you don't create exist as probabilities that are unmanifested. They're energy. So I look at it that way. Instead of creating a new timeline which has this feeling of fatalism, like now I'm on a new timeline, which means I'm gonna be rich and I am that. It's still operating on a false understanding. And again, I used all that verbiage before and I'm changing it. But the assumption is that it's a concrete timeline and that there's infinite concrete timelines and you can switch from one timeline to another. But that's not what I'm finding out is what's going on. We are living one timeline in 3D that we manifest a probability every nanosecond. It becomes a certainty when you don't have control over your choice of what probability you want to experience, which has everything to do with having the ability to choose what you do. So the first thing that you need to know is, Paul, you have choice over what you do. And to the extent that you operate without any choice, your fear drives you, your greed, your instinct, your lust, your whatever it is, your anger. I mean, I run into this all the time. You know, I got angry at some people and it was simply because I was in a bad space because of all this stuff and somebody said something that triggered some old psychological stuff and I got really upset and angry and I had to go back and apologize. And I didn't have any control over what I was doing. My emotions took over and I was controlled. My choices and my actions were dictated by my fears and my anger and my emotions. That is an example of somebody who is not making any choices, which means that the probability that is created ends up being a certainty. You don't have any control over it. So the first thing, Paul, is that you have, in this moment, control over everything you choose to do. That means how you choose to feel, what you choose to believe. Again, fear-based, I don't know you, but let's say, for example, somebody who has a fear-based belief. They believe that all women are out to get them. All women want to use them for their ATM card. All women are the same. Some woman hurt them in the past, could have been their mom, and now they're programmed to respond to the probability of having love in their life with that negativity. That probability they manifest is, yep, they run into another narcissistic, codependent, borderline woman who destroys them, gets pregnant and takes all their money. And they keep manifesting that probability because they don't have the power of choice, because they refuse to change the way that they operate from their feelings. They refuse to forgive. They refuse to look at themselves. They refuse to change, so they don't have any choice. So their probability is now a certainty, and that's what when a psychic goes, I can tell you exactly what's going to happen to that guy. Because it's clear. They're not living from choice. So you want to change your timeline. Every single moment, you are creating, you are living, not even creating, you are living a probability. Remember, light is neither a photon nor a wave. It will manifest based on the intention of the observer. Really not the intention, the expectation. So if you expect people are going to hurt you, people are going to hurt you. If you expect people will love you, people will love you. If you want to expect that people will love you, but you find you can't muster that expectation, then you have to go and do some work. You have to go work with a counselor, a therapist, go to a 12-step group, and restructure your hard drive, which means go into your unconscious, look at what mommy and daddy did, and work through all those feelings. And you have to do it with somebody else. You can't do it alone. This isn't just about you, Paul. I don't know you at all. I'm just talking generally. None of us can do this alone. And if you think that you're going to achieve conscious awareness by yourself, good luck with that. If you are, then you and I are completely different. I need help. I need my teacher, therapist. I need my group therapy. I need my 12-step group. I need to meditate. I need to make these videos. I need to be of service and help others. I need to do all that. I don't do that. I'm 6 feet underground with a bullet in my brain. So anyway, I don't know what I said, but there we go. That's that question. Anyway, so this is a huge subject that I obviously can't address in one small response to your question. So watch, Paul, if you haven't already. I've got a manifestation mastery course up here. Go watch that. That course will help you understand. Patrick.thunderwizard.com. He is also one of my Vedic astrologer certificate holders, and he is a powerful shaman and healer in his own right. You can check out his website, patrick.thunderwizard.com. Creative Virgo, honest feeling. By consciously reconditioning myself to not volunteer unsolicited advice, I notice I can far better pay attention to being in the moment. Thank you. That's absolutely right. Now you know why I, for so long, got so annoyed with you. And you probably didn't know why I got so, really annoyed and frustrated with you. I almost blocked you a couple of times because I could see, and so can everybody else back then, all of the RAM in your hard drive was going towards needing to be validated by helping other people. And it just was so, you weren't able to hear anything anybody was saying. At least you weren't able to hear anything I was saying. So I love that you have had that experience where by simply taking the action, this is why action is so important. Simply taking the action to not act based on that instinct, which is I've got to always tell everybody what to do and how to help everybody and fix everybody. You can still have all those feelings, but by making the choice not to, you changed your probability. This answers Paul's question. It's not that you have to be perfect. By all means, no. It's that you have to know what the right action is, which will be most beneficial to you and to others, even if it's completely opposite to what everything inside of you is telling you to do. So it'll be extremely uncomfortable. But by not doing that, in that case, choosing to respect people's boundaries and choosing to stay silent, you become aware. Oh my God, all of that energy has been going towards that. I haven't been hearing anybody. Anyway, I'm speaking for you, but that's what I heard in what you said. It sounds great. And you say you're feeling better, and I think that's awesome. Congratulations. What else? James Moffat, question. Would you still like to go back to how it was before you have now moved to this level? So, James, I have to call you on something. Every time that you want to bring this up, because here's what happened. You, a while back, talked about an intense, challenging, and difficult transformation, shamanic transformation. You were in it for a long time. I don't remember what you said, but it was a long time ago, and I responded and I said, this is your unresolved unconscious issues. You need a psychologist. And I said that to you a few times. Then I had a shamanic transformation experience, which, by the way, does not mean what you went through and what I went through were the same. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't, but that's a conflation. You've then repeated yourself numerous times. I don't know if you've messaged me personally or not. I don't remember, but it felt that way. You've said, now do you know what it's like? Now do you know what it's like? And James, this is about you. And it's destructive and it's passive aggressive. Your continuous obsession on me needing to validate your experience now, again, just makes me feel that there's still a lot of victim mentality going on with you. So you just wrote that seemingly innocent question, and I'm not going to respond to it, because what you really want me to do is you really want me to go back and say, look, I'm sorry that I misjudged you. You had a shamanic experience, and now that I've had this, you and I are the same. And first off, I don't know if that's true or not. To whatever degree we do share that, I embrace that and I welcome that. But it's time to stop. We're done. I'm not going to play that role with you. I'm not going to be that guy. I'm not your dad. I'm not whoever devalued you as a kid. I'm not that person. So I'm not going to play this with you. My transformation experience is my transformation experience, and there's no need for you to constantly interject yourself in it. And even though you didn't say it outright, you did it again here. So I'm not going to respond to that question. I'd like for you to move on. Show some respect for me. Just let me have my experience and let's move on, and stop trying to get me to go back and relive. You see what I went through? Now you know what I went through. It's just passive aggressive and destructive, and I've said it before, and I'm done. So, okay, so let's move on. If you want to start over again, I'm happy to start over, but let's move on with that. So I'm going to remove that question because it's not It's not a question. It's actually a passive-aggressive attempt to play out something I don't want to be a part of. Okay, you then go on to say, James Moffat, honest feeling. I often want to go back to how it was before I shifted myself. I hadn't even seen that. So, James Moffat, my friend, now I know why I have such a strong reaction to you. My friend, this isn't transformation. This is unresolved psychological victim stuff. Because when you go through a real transformation, when you come out the other end, you can't imagine going back to who you were before. If you're saying this can be hard, and if you're saying you want to go back to the way you were, I was right. You've just now confirmed my instinct was right. James Moffat, you need some help. I recommend you get a counselor, therapist, maybe go to Codependence Anonymous, work the 12 steps. But you've been with this pain. My transformation event lasted a few weeks. Yours has been years. I know that about you. And I'm not judging that, but if you're still years and years later saying, I wish I could go back to the way I was, it means that it's not a transformational experience. It means that your unresolved emotional conflict has crippled you and you're in pain and you need help. So my recommendation to you, as I said, get a counselor, get a therapist, and or work the 12 steps of whatever 12-step group works for you. Work through this stuff, okay? I say that with nothing but love and kindness for you. I hope you find what you need. But if you take the action, you can fix it. That's the thing you need to know. You've got to take the action to fix it. That means you're going to have to go and get the help and do the work and do the hard work of looking at yourself and moving past it. I wish all the luck in the world. I hope you find it. Joy Coughlin, welcome to the channel. If this is your first time here, a hearty welcome to this channel. I hope you can find what you need here. I hope it's educational and pleasant for you. I recommend you go and look on my playlists and start watching more of my videos so you know what I teach. This is a question and answer, so if you want to interact with me, the two ways I want to see that is one, by writing a question. And a question is an honest question. You want to ask me something you think I don't know the answer to. By the way, James Moffat, your first question wasn't that. A question is, so what happens, Mike, when you do this particular meditation and what's the end result of that? That's a question that allows me to share with you something and help you on your journey. So ask me a question you think I don't know the answer to. And then, of course, write the word question in all caps so that I see it. Otherwise, I might not see it. And you say, I did through my 4D self and my daughters. I don't know what that means. But if you watched earlier in the beginning, I showed you, after talking from a physics perspective, it's literally impossible to be in 4D while being manifested in 3D. So you might be using other meanings for that word, but I don't know what that means. But based on what I'm saying, it doesn't sound like that's at least what I'm talking about here. You didn't write the word question here, but you did ask one. You said, do you believe people from the future are visiting and helping us? Yes. That's an easy question. The answer to that question is yes. All right, is that it? Are we all done? Let me do the business real quick. I don't see any more questions. First off, to James and whomever else I may have responded harshly to, please know that anything and everything I do is coming from a desire to be helpful. I'm still human. Sometimes I misunderstand. Sometimes I misjudge. Sometimes I react too quickly. And that's just the way it is. Sometimes I just give you the bitter medicine. I love you so much, I'm going to tell you the truth whether you want to hear it or not. And that means, if that means you stop watching my channel, well, that's how you know I'm going to be a real friend, which means I'm going to tell you when you've got, something on your tooth. I'm going to be the guy that tells you that you got something on your tooth. Because I care more about your well-being than I care about you liking me or approving of me. So if I've done or said anything that's been hurtful or offensive, I ask that you forgive me. I'm doing my best, and hopefully I've been able to help you. That's just my style. Go up here to Warrior 90-Day Challenge. We're at the beginning of the month, so I strongly recommend every single person listening subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. Do the exercises. You will get a combined exercise of Qigong, which is life force energy. The cells of your body will raise in vibration higher towards the higher dimensions. Kundalini, which will raise your psychological and spiritual awareness by opening up the chakras in your nervous system so that you can understand and interact better with these higher dimensional forces. And then the lightning Qigong itself, which is the energy that surrounds the heart center, which gets turned around and literally starts creating in your body 5D energy, which you can feel. I recommend that everybody do that. You go to thunderwizard.com and subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. See all of my books and all of my other services and teachings at courses.thunderwizard.com, courses.thunderwizard.com. If you want the most powerful energy practice known to mankind, at least in my opinion, which again is directly pulling 5D energy into your 3D body, go to maoshan.thunderwizard.com. If you don't want or can't afford to even subscribe a measly amount of money that you would spend on coffee anyway, if you can't do that, please do the free practices. Go on to the channel, thunderwizard.com. Go to the playlists and do the Qigong. There's one in there, the Maoshan Energy, Magic, and Qigong. There's another one, Thor's Belt Qigong. There's meditations in there. Even if you're not, even if you don't have any money to support the channel, please do the free stuff. The Awakening the Immortals is the most powerful free practice I have on there. The Huul breath, H-U-U-L. Go type that in, H-U-U-L breath. Go do that. That won't cost you anything. Please, please do the energy work, because what is happening is a shift in energy. And we are going to need this energy if we want to have the most pleasant, the most powerful transition into this new realm. You're going to need the energy, and I feel pretty confident that you're not going to be able to find any other energy practice that comes close to the power that this energy system gives. I've had Qigong masters who have just done one of my practices, that is the lightning Qigong, come back to me and say, I've been doing high-level energy work for 20 years, 30 years. I've never felt anything that vibrates on this level. And it's because now we know this is a practice that's been given from higher dimensions. And this is where we're headed. So make use of it at whatever level. That is my hope. The more that you meditate, the more that you do energy work, the better my life becomes. So if you want to make me happy, when we're done with this, go do some meditation, whatever that is, and you will have my eternal gratitude. That's it. I appreciate it. And all right, Joy, what was that? All right, so Joy, I don't like to be abused, and I find that response abusive, and so this may not be the channel for you. I hope you come back, but I don't want to be on the other end of it. I don't like the way it feels. So thank you. Say goodbye there. That's it for me, guys. I wish you all the best. I love you with all my heart, and I look forward to whatever's coming next, whatever that is. All right, that's it for me, guys. I will see you next time.